This is my BMW E46 325i. I love this car. I bought it already slightly prepared with a few aftermarket parts like coilovers, welded differential, solid motor mounts, a header, just a few minor things along with the stripped out interior. And I really like this car. I like how it handles, I like how it runs, I like driving it. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of good options for engine swaps. Under the hood, we have a slightly soggy factory 2.5 liter engine, probably putting about 170 horsepower to the rear wheels. Torque numbers aren't bad, and the car actually works quite well, but it falls on its face on larger tracks. It's also going to be fairly pitiful for tandem. So what to do with this thing? Boost, nitrous, engine swap, something else, new chassis? Well, I don't want to go to a new chassis. I like my car and I want to stay with it. Unfortunately, that means that I either have to go with a chassis-specific engine, which is going to be either a 3-liter or M3 swap, or I go non-street, Texas street legal style, do a Pro-Am style build with an engine swap. Now, to listen to Aaron Losey talk, and he's not wrong, a big engine swap could be disastrous. It could cost me tens of thousands of dollars and take me down for seasons at a time. However, I think it can be done. So this video series is going to take a look at just how to do that. Let me start by talking a bit about how the car is right now. As I mentioned before, this is a factory 2.5 liter BMW engine, comes in a 325i E46 series. There's a few slight things done to it here. You can see we're going down to a cone filter over there, solid motor mounts hiding under there along with an aftermarket header. You can see that the radiator has a aftermarket fan on it, not because it needed it, because it didn't come with the factory one. A lot of stripping out in the engine bay, which reduces weight and also simplifies things a little bit. Most of the emissions equipment is gone, and this car is obviously not street legal. Moving around the inside, factory dash is gone, as is all of the factory HVAC and controls, an awful lot of the wiring. Racing seats, harnesses, factory e-brakes still in place, though I've got an extension lever to make that a little easier to work with. No roll cage, though I do have a harness bar just to allow me to run those harnesses. That is a for now gesture, of course. I'd like to go full cage on this ultimately. Suspension is BC Racing coilovers, Derek Rogers cut knuckles, a welded differential on a 330 automatic series subframe, which gets me a slightly different rear end ratio and bigger brakes in the back. Other than that, this car is essentially stock, and unfortunately very wet because it's been outside in the rain. It's even running wheels that are factory for this chassis. Admittedly on spacers so that I can clear those knuckles I mentioned a minute ago. So, what engine swap are we looking at for this BMW if that's the road we're going down? Well, after a lot of research and a lot of looking, let's take a look at what I got here. This pile of slightly taken apart parts is a 1JZ GTE VVT-i. It was purchased for a very reasonable price, is in completely stock form, doesn't have a transmission attached to it, and is going to be going into that E46 BMW. There's going to be a lot of sporting mods along the way. There's going to be a lot of work along the way, but at the end, with a little luck, we're going to be looking at a sub $10,000 350 wheel horsepower BMW E46. So what's the purpose of these videos? Well, you may have noticed I haven't said anything about this being a how-to series. There's certainly going to be some of that in here. Wherever possible, I'm going to try to educate you viewers out there on some things that I know how to do that you might or might not, or might do a different way. I'm also going to talk a lot about philosophy and how I build a car and what I choose to do. So, with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit about some of that philosophy, starting with, should you take on a project like this? Let's say you've got a car that is like mine, with limited engine options. Let's say an IS300 or a let's say you have an IS300 or an E30 series BMW or a Miata. Should you consider doing an engine swap, or is it time to ditch that chassis and go with something else? Well, a few things to consider. What's your skill set? You may notice the tools I'm sitting in front of. This is my garage. It's not a shop that I work at professionally, though I do build cars for other people, and I've been doing this for a long time and have a lot of experience at it. I also have a skill set that allows me to repair, fabricate, diagnose, wire, and otherwise do things that may be outside of your skill set. If you are not comfortable with all of the aspects of an engine swap, electrical fabrication, troubleshooting, problem solving, and more, you might not want to take this project on. Or alternately, if you don't have access to a lot of very helpful friends that want to work with you on the project, you may not want to take this on. It may not be for you. Also, what is your financial situation like? I am trying to do this project on the cheap, but on the cheap entails a car that is going to cost between $7,000 and $10,000. That's relatively affordable for me, especially considering that most of that price has been spread out over a long period of time. However, that's not for everybody. Your situation may not allow that. And if that sounds like a big and unrealistic number, now might be your time to back out. Go look for a cheap 350Z that's been totaled. Go look for an S chassis that's already been built. You can buy one for $3,000 if you look long enough, and go and enjoy yourself. These are good options. Not to mention, you'll learn a lot owning a car like that, maintaining it, and running it in relatively stock form. You might want to do that before you start thinking about dropping a 1J or a 2J or a V8 into your car. Now, enough doom and gloom for one episode. I've spent a lot of time talking about reasons you shouldn't do a project, but let's assume that you think you're past all these hurdles and you want to watch me build my own project just as an idea of whether you should or not. Well, good thing for you, that's exactly what you're going to get to watch happen here. And I'm going to show you all the details. I'm going to show you what I spent. I'm going to show you the mistakes I made along the way, the little things that cost me money that I didn't even think about up front, and how I calculated out what engine I should buy, how much money I thought I would spend, and how I planned and budgeted for this whole project. I'm going to get into that more next time here on the Lone Star Drift channel in Ian's Garage. Talk to you then.